I'm going to read something that was published in the True Words anthology. It's through the Circle Network, which is really a great way to get your work published. So Susan mentioned it, the story Circle Work. You go online and there's always really good stuff to read and opportunities for writing contests and reviews of memoirs, and a great website where a lot of women get to speak. So this piece, I decided to read it because it's March, and I guess it was 7 years ago my mother died in March, and so this was, I'm writing a memoir actually about caregiving her when she had dementia. But this was, I think, one of the first pieces I wrote about that time. My mother hated her feet. They were size 10, widened and flattened by 4 pregnancies, with toes curved around each other, enlarged at the joints. In the 60s, when everyone wore sandals, she searched for a style that hid her toes. At the beach or by the pool, she wore plastic bathing slippers. Bubba bought secondhand shoes from a pushcart from my older sisters and me, she'd remarked during every frequent trip to the shoe store when I was a child. By the time I got them, they were hand-me-downs. Our shoes gave us bunions and ruined our toes. I swore, if nothing else, my kids would have new shoes and pretty toes, just like yours. In the beginning of her dementia, when we thought she was just depressed, I took her shopping at the wide shoe store. Nothing's right. Nothing's right, she muttered over and over, her head oscillating in despair. We squandered half a day until finally settling on a mauve leather flat shoe with Velcro strap. Laces and buckles were no longer an option. They were too confusing. With these shoes, we trudged through the mud of depression and tiptoed the quicksand at its demented foundation. Her shoes fell through the cracks when she did. They were always getting lost. But on the days when her mind returned, so did her shoes. She demanded the help she needed to put them on. Shoes were her dignity. When she moved into an assisted living facility, I packed up her beloved home of 52 years. I counted 37 pairs of shoes in her bedroom closet and assorted singles. There were shoes that looked cozy and comfortable, just like her house. I found the shoes she'd worn to my wedding and the muddied shoes she'd worn to visit her mother's grave, her running shoes and her swimming shoes and her Sunday morning slippers. Right up front sat the black patent pumps she'd worn the previous fall at grandson Joey's wedding. Those shoes looked ready and waiting for their next dance. For a few minutes, I basked in her presence, captured in shoes. Toward the back of her closet, I discovered shoes that smelled new, purchased on a whim, with rigid straps and narrow toes. They were unrealistic for the shape of her feet, but classy and adored anyway. I'm sure she couldn't bear to wear or discard them. These shoes were life's disappointments, with gaping holes between what was desired and what was delivered. Like a disintegrating brain in the middle of an exuberant and well-deserved retirement, they betrayed a painful discontent. I threw these shoes out. So when it was, I found the blue dress with white trim around the Nehru collar, the dress she bought for her third son, my brother Miles's bar mitzvah, 30 years previous. The neckline would look nice in a half-body open casket, and Miles would be pleased. Since that top half of her body was all that would show, I figured that was all she would need. I was wrong. A few weeks after her death, she visited my dreams, as she had been in her prime, energetic, high-spirited, bursting with love and gratitude. She came back to thank me for taking care of her when she could no longer take care of herself. I was grateful for this gift from her spirit. A few months after her funeral, she visited again. This time, she came back steeped in demented hysteria. She came back demanding her shoes. In the dream, I searched the house for her shoes, every string in my body's fiber, tight with the familiar angst, trying to make things right by her. She waited in the car, fraught with anxiety that never let up. I knew it well. For 2 sick years, I took up the slack when it seemed as if she'd explode. In the dream, I never found the shoes. I woke up and realized that I had buried her without them. I knew the ones she wanted, the black patent pumps she had danced in at Joey's wedding. Just before she got sick, she danced with her second son, my brother Lance, at his son Joey's wedding. What a glorious day that had been for her. She was already concerned about the state of her mind. She confided to me weeks before the wedding, "I wish it was here already." She knew she was just holding on. She knew what was coming. She held on long enough to make dance with her son in her patent shoes and be the elegant grandmother she wanted to be. Those shoes, boxed in the attic, complete with shoe stretchers to keep them wide, still wait for their next affair. But this never occurred to me on the day before her funeral, and there are some things you can't do over again. So she went out barefoot, the way she came in, but worn from living. A pebble of guilt remains in my shoe, although it diminishes as the years pass and the stain of her dementia wears off. My mother's black patent shoes remain in my attic, a testament to a life in full. And if nothing else, my daughter had new shoes and pretty toes, just like mine. That wraps it up, I think, for tonight. And but we could